He thought his deepest secret was buried in the shadows, until it was used to destroy him. A respected preacher, a forbidden family affair, and a mother whose love turned into a crime that shocked an entire community. This isn't just a scandal, it's a spiral into darkness. Some stories remind us that human nature is far more complicated than the roles we play in public. It's easy to look at someone on a pulpit, wearing the cloak of morality, and assume their life matches their sermons. But behind closed doors, people hide parts of themselves they're terrified to reveal, and sometimes, those hidden parts hold enough power to ruin lives. In this story, faith, family, and forbidden desire collided in the most destructive way possible, leaving behind betrayal, shame, and blood. Before we dive into this unbelievable chain of events, make sure you stick around until the end. Because the final twist, involving the preacher's own mother, will leave you questioning just how far a parent will go for their child. And if you love deep dives into real-life crime stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly uploads. Now, let's get into it. The first thing anyone noticed about Reverend Nathaniel Cross was his presence. Standing a solid 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered but lean, he had a way of holding himself that made people feel they were in the company of someone important, someone trustworthy. At 40 years old, Nathaniel had become the very embodiment of respect in the quiet community of Jacksonville, Florida. For 20 years, Nathaniel had stood at the pulpit of Grace Path Baptist Church, speaking to a congregation of nearly 200 every Sunday. He knew everyone by name, from the elderly women who occupied the first pew to the restless teenagers in the back. His voice was his greatest tool. Warm, steady, and capable of painting vivid images of hope, redemption, and forgiveness. Nathaniel's sermons often brought tears to the eyes of his listeners. He didn't just preach, he connected. He officiated weddings, blessed newborns, counseled couples on the brink of divorce, and visited the sick in hospitals. He organized charity drives for the homeless and spearheaded youth mentorship programs that helped keep troubled teenagers off the streets. The Reverend wasn't just a preacher, he was their preacher. A man who, in the eyes of the congregation, lived as an example of the very morals and virtues he preached about. But there's something about small towns, they see you, they watch you, and sometimes, they think they know everything about you. And in Nathaniel's case, they were wrong. Very wrong. For all his charisma and kindness, Nathaniel carried a secret so heavy it threatened to crush him. It wasn't just that he was gay. Though, in his religious circle, that alone would have been scandal enough. No, his secret was far more complicated. Far more dangerous. It involved Ethan Cross, his first cousin. Ethan was 6 years younger, 34, with a reckless charm that was the polar opposite of Nathaniel's careful composure. Where Nathaniel was meticulous and disciplined, Ethan was impulsive and carefree. He lived in a small, cluttered apartment on the edge of town, worked odd jobs he never kept for long, and had a habit of rubbing people the wrong way. He was also openly gay, something the rest of the family ignored rather than discussed. The two men had grown up together, spending summers at their grandparents' old farmhouse. As children, they had been inseparable. But as they grew older, their lives took completely different paths, Nathaniel into the church, Ethan into a life without structure or faith. And yet, one night years ago, after a family gathering and a little too much whiskey, they crossed a line. It was supposed to be a one-time mistake, something they would both bury in silence. But as the years passed, there were other moments, private encounters when no one else was around. They never discussed what it meant. They never made promises. But they also never stopped. For Nathaniel, the encounters were wrapped in shame. He would step into the pulpit the next Sunday feeling like a fraud, certain that if anyone in the congregation could see into his soul, they would cast him out without a second thought. The real trouble began on a humid summer night about 8 months before the scandal broke. Nathaniel had gone to see Ethan under the pretense of checking in. Ethan had just lost another job, and Nathaniel said he wanted to help. But that night ended the same way several others had before. What Nathaniel didn't know was that Ethan had his phone out. At first, he had been taking pictures of the two of them sitting on the couch, laughing. But then, he kept recording. The angle was bad, the lighting dim, but it didn't matter. What the short video captured was undeniable. When Ethan looked at the footage later, something shifted in him. It wasn't just a private trophy, it was leverage. In the weeks that followed, Nathaniel carried on with his life, oblivious to the storm gathering in the background. He led Sunday services, visited the sick, held hands with grieving families, and attended prayer meetings. His mother, Margaret Cross, an elder in the church, often sat proudly in the front row, her head held high as she watched her son command the room with every word. If anyone had asked Nathaniel at that time, he would have said life was good. Tiring, yes, but good. That illusion shattered one Tuesday night when his phone buzzed. The message was from Ethan. "We need to talk. I've got something you might want to see." Nathaniel frowned, confused. He typed back, "What is it?" A moment later, a video file came through. Nathaniel's breath caught in his throat. His hand went cold around the phone. 10 seconds of footage. 10 seconds that could destroy everything. Another message followed. "You want this to stay private? You'll pay." Nathaniel's mouth went dry. His first thought wasn't anger. It was fear. Fear of what this would do to his congregation. Fear of what this would do to his mother. This was the beginning of the end. And Nathaniel had no idea just how far this would go, or how much blood would be spilled before it was over. Nathaniel sat at his desk in the dimly lit church office, the glow from his phone screen making his face look pale. He replayed the clip again, hoping, praying, that somehow, he had misinterpreted it. But there was no mistake. It was him. And Ethan. He felt his stomach twist, a deep ache that made him want to throw up. A knock on the office door made him flinch, but it was just the church janitor asking if he'd be locking up soon. Nathaniel mumbled a distracted yes and shut the door again, locking it this time. His phone buzzed. Another message from Ethan. "Ethan, $10,000. By Friday. Or the whole world sees it." Nathaniel's thumbs hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to type a dozen things, rage, pleas, threats, but all that came out was, "Nathaniel, Ethan, you're my cousin. Why are you doing this?" The reply came almost instantly. "Ethan, because you've had your perfect life for too long. And I'm tired of watching you stand on that stage acting like you're better than me." It was like a slap in the face. Nathaniel realized this wasn't just about money. This was about resentment. Years of it. That night, Nathaniel couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined the clip being sent to his church elders, to his mother, to the congregation. He imagined whispers turning into sermons about sin and hypocrisy. He imagined Margaret, his proud, unwavering mother, seeing it for the first time. By Wednesday morning, Ethan sent another message, "Ethan, clock's ticking. I can start sending it to people right now if I want." Nathaniel responded. "Nathaniel, you'll get your money. But this stops after that. Do you hear me? This ends." Ethan didn't promise anything. He just sent an address and a time. Friday came faster than Nathaniel expected. He spent the day in a haze, making small talk with church staff, pretending to prepare for Sunday's sermon, all while $10,000 in cash sat inside a brown envelope in his briefcase. The drop-off spot was a small, run-down coffee shop 2 towns over, a place where nobody would recognize them. Nathaniel arrived early, sitting in the far corner booth with his coffee untouched. Ethan strolled in 15 minutes late, wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy. He slid into the seat across from Nathaniel like they were old friends catching up. Nathaniel pushed the envelope across the table. "Delete it. All of it." Ethan picked up the envelope, casually flipping through the bills. "Sure," he said. But there was a smirk on his face that made Nathaniel's stomach churn. You swear to me, Nathaniel began. Ethan interrupted. Relax. It's gone. But Nathaniel knew. Deep down, he knew it wasn't gone. For a few weeks, things were quiet. Nathaniel convinced himself that maybe Ethan had taken the money and moved on. He threw himself into church work again, visiting the sick, counseling a young couple, even attending a charity banquet with his mother. But peace never lasts with a blackmailer. And Nathaniel was about to learn that the first payment was only the beginning. 3 weeks passed without a word from Ethan. Nathaniel almost allowed himself to believe it was over. That maybe his cousin had taken the money, deleted the video, and moved on with his chaotic life. But blackmailers don't walk away from a gold mine. And Ethan had just begun digging. It was a Thursday afternoon when the message came in. Nathaniel was in his office, preparing for Sunday's sermon, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and froze. Ethan, we need to meet again. This time it's 15 grand. Nathaniel stared at the message. His hands tightened around the phone. Nathaniel, you said it was over. The reply was quick. Ethan, I said I deleted what I showed you. I didn't say I deleted everything. The bottom dropped out of Nathaniel's stomach. Everything? He whispered the word to himself like it might make more sense out loud. Ethan, multiple angles. Different nights. You want this to stay private, you pay again. Nathaniel's pulse pounded in his ears. The 10,000 had nearly drained his personal savings. 15,000 more. There was no way he could explain that withdrawal without raising questions, and he refused to take church funds. That night, Nathaniel sat alone in his living room, lights off, phone in hand. He thought about calling Ethan's bluff. Could Ethan really leak it without destroying himself, too? But deep down, he knew Ethan wouldn't care. Margaret's voice echoed in his mind, her constant reminder that the Cross family name is a blessing and a responsibility. If she ever found out about the tape. Nathaniel could barely breathe thinking about it. The next morning, Nathaniel sent his answer. Nathaniel, no more. I'm not paying again. The typing dots appeared, then disappeared. A minute later, another message popped up. Ethan, then watch your life burn. 2 days later, the nightmare became reality. Nathaniel was in the middle of leading a Saturday morning prayer group when his phone began vibrating non-stop in his pocket. He ignored it, but the looks on some of the attendees' faces made him uneasy. When the group ended, he stepped into the hallway and checked his phone. Dozens of messages from church members, friends, even old acquaintances he hadn't spoken to in years. Some were short, "Have you seen this?" Others were long, rambling, filled with shock and judgment. The link was everywhere, group chats, anonymous gossip boards. The full video. More than one clip. By the afternoon, it had spread beyond Jacksonville. Local blogs were picking it up. The church elders called an emergency meeting that night. Nathaniel wasn't invited to speak, he was simply informed of the decision afterward. He was being placed on administrative leave, and the congregation would be praying for God's guidance on the matter. By Sunday morning, whispers followed him everywhere. People avoided his eyes. Parents subtly pulled their children away when he walked by. The sermons he had poured his life into were now replaced by gossip. But the deepest wound came from his own mother. When Margaret Cross showed up at his house that Sunday evening, Nathaniel braced for the scolding of a lifetime. But what he saw in her face wasn't shame, it was rage. She didn't even sit down. "Who did this?" she demanded. Nathaniel hesitated, then said softly, "It was Ethan." Margaret's jaw clenched. "Your cousin?" "Yes." Nathaniel's voice broke. "He's the one who recorded it. He's the one who spread it." Margaret's eyes darkened in a way Nathaniel had never seen before. "Then I'm going to fix this." Nathaniel didn't understand what she meant at the time. But within 48 hours, her fix would turn a family scandal into a murder investigation. Margaret Cross had spent her entire life defending her son's name. To her, Nathaniel wasn't just her boy, he was the Reverend. The pride of the Cross family. The embodiment of their values. She had sat in the front row of his sermons for 2 decades, head high, smiling as members of the congregation congratulated her on raising such a fine, godly man. Now, with one viral video, that image was shattered. After hearing Nathaniel confirm that Ethan was responsible, Margaret didn't cry. She didn't shout. She went very quiet, the kind of quiet that made the air feel heavy. "I should have seen it," she muttered. "That boy's always been a snake." Nathaniel shook his head, pacing. "Mom, please, just leave it alone. It's done now." But Margaret wasn't listening. She was staring at the wall, jaw set like she was working through a problem. A permanent solution. The next night, Margaret drove to Ethan's small apartment complex on the edge of town. It was nearly 10 p.m., the streets quiet, only the buzzing of a broken streetlight keeping her company as she walked to his door. She'd brought something with her, a kitchen knife, wrapped in a dish towel, tucked into her purse. Neighbors later said they heard the door slam open, then raised voices. One remembered a woman's voice, sharp, furious. "You ruined him. You ruined my son." Inside, Ethan was leaning back against his cluttered kitchen counter, smirking. "Margaret," he said mockingly, "to what do I owe the pleasure? You think you can just tear him down? He's family." Ethan shrugged. "He's a hypocrite, and now everybody knows. Maybe he should have thought about that before." Margaret cut him off. "Delete it. All of it. Every file, every copy. Now." Ethan laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You think I still have control of it? It's already out there. People have saved it, downloaded it. Even if I delete my copies, it'll never go away." That's when Margaret's voice changed. Lower. More dangerous. "Then you're going to pay for what you've done." What happened in the next 30 seconds was the subject of endless courtroom debate. The prosecution called it premeditated murder. The defense called it a crime of passion. What's certain is that Margaret pulled the knife from her purse. Ethan's smirk faltered. He raised his hands, stepping back. "Hey, Margaret, what are you?" The first stab landed in his chest. A short, sharp gasp escaped his lips. He staggered back against the counter, knocking over a mug that shattered on the floor. The second strike came a moment later. Ethan collapsed. His breathing was ragged, shallow, then it stopped. Margaret stood over him, chest heaving, the knife still in her hand. For a moment, she seemed frozen. Then she stepped over his body, moving quickly toward the small desk in the corner of the room. She grabbed Ethan's laptop and phone, her hands trembling but determined. She searched his files, deleted what she could, and even smashed the phone against the floor until the screen spiderwebbed into blackness. It didn't matter. The files were already too far gone. The internet had them now. But in Margaret's mind, she had silenced the source. A neighbor, concerned after hearing shouting and a loud crash, called the police. When officers arrived, they found Ethan lying on the kitchen floor, lifeless, and Margaret sitting on the couch, knife on the coffee table in front of her. She didn't try to run. She didn't deny what she'd done. "He ruined my boy," she told the first officer who entered. "I couldn't let him keep breathing after that." With Ethan dead, the scandal was no longer just a matter of reputation, it was now the center of a homicide investigation that would drag Nathaniel into a courtroom, and his mother into a prison cell. Ethan's death was ruled a homicide within hours. Witnesses placed Margaret at the scene. Her fingerprints were on the weapon. When detectives questioned her, she didn't deny killing him. Instead, she said, "I did what I had to do to protect my son." Nathaniel was blindsided. His mother's arrest turned the scandal into a full-blown criminal saga. Church members swarmed the courthouse, eager to connect the dots between the viral tape and the murder. The church severed all official ties with Nathaniel. Former friends avoided him in public. But the most haunting part was that Margaret seemed almost at peace in custody. She told her lawyer she didn't regret her actions. Margaret's defense team argued she acted in the heat of passion, a temporary loss of control caused by extreme emotional distress. The prosecution painted her as a calculating killer who committed premeditated murder. Nathaniel testified in her defense, but his cross-examination was brutal. The prosecution highlighted his affair with his cousin, painting him as morally corrupt and implying his behavior had led directly to Ethan's death. The jury took just 7 hours to deliberate. Margaret was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Nathaniel never returned to the pulpit. He moved to another state, working quietly as a counselor for at-risk youth. The scandal never fully disappeared, whispers followed him wherever he went. Margaret remains in prison to this day, still insisting she would do it again if it meant protecting her son. This case isn't just about a sex scandal or even about a murder. It's about how pride, secrecy, and desperation can twist people's morals until the lines between love and destruction blur completely. Nathaniel's secret may have started the chain reaction, but it was Margaret's choice that turned a family scandal into a crime that could never be undone. If you were in Margaret's position, would you have confronted Ethan, or walked away, even if it meant your child's life was ruined? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this story as shocking as I did, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dive crime stories. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you're first to hear when we drop our next episode. Until then, stay safe, and remember, secrets have a way of coming out, no matter how well you think you've hidden them.